as being the key issues of the 2022 presidential race?
Actually, it depends who you're asking to this question. If we are asking the question to the people in France, they will talk about employment and the precarity that they are facing now. They will talk about, of course, the COVID health crisis, which highlight the appalling state of our health system. They will talk about education. They will talk about housing. Those all are the major issues that are that people are facing daily, and that those are the questions we are, La France Insoumise, campaigning around and trying to build a movement, a majority around those issues. Actually, we did a poll recently about the key measures we are proposing to debate during this presidential election, and a vast majority of the people agreed with those issues. So this is the reality of the level of consciousness within the people. On the contrary, we think about the media landscape and the way it is built in the media and in the political, and for Mr. Macron and President Macron. You will only hear about security issues, you will only hear about Islam, you will only hear about those topics that will help Marine Le Pen and the far right to be at the second round, because this is the strategy that Emmanuel Macron had designed over a year ago, saying that he had to face Marine Le Pen at the second round if he want to win. So this is what we've been living as a political opponents, is that the focus on those far right topics that are not the main issue that people are actually facing and what they want to talk about. I think about, for instance, the environmental crisis, climate crisis is an even more important issue. People are realizing the concrete and daily effects that those issue, climate crisis, has on their life, but that's not what is being pushed forward. And I think that's the disconnect between working class people, middle class issues, and what is being billed as the only debate topics that should be talked about by the government, by Mr. Macron, and by some of the media, which is a very problematic, I think, on the democratic level. I don't think, and I really stand to my first statement, is that this is a field that is built. For instance, there was a poll showing that maybe 2/3 of the people invited in the morning shows in France were from the right. I mean, that's appalling on a basic democratic level, the way it is shaped in order to highlight not just the issue, but the right-wing and far right-wing point of view. It was referred about Mr. Zemmour, which is a total media build-up, and that is all today focusing with all those vile and xenophobic. This is a man who's been condemned by the justice twice for hate speech, but is given free rein on mainstream media. So this is what is being felt. I don't mean that there's no law and order problematic. Of course they are, and that should be discussed. And we have a lot of things to say how we should reshape our police and policing and those policy around it. But the problem is, for instance, you've been talking about the Yellow Vest movement as a law and order movement, which it wasn't. It was about environmental justice. It was about economic issue. It was mainly. It was mainly, and those and the demands were about social justice, about economic justice. That's the majority of what has been happening. You talk about the pension movement. Those were the major social movement that has been happening in this country over the past years. And this is about pension. You talk about anti-police and anti-police brutality movement. This is about equality. And it has nothing, I mean, of course, the way Mr. Macron and the government reacted was by crashing those movements, by unleashing police brutality, and that's a reaction of the government that created those law and order problems. If you think about police brutality and the level of repression unheard in France, a country that is used to social movement, but the level of repression is at a high time low. So that to me, that shows how those problematic environmental issue, economic issue, social issue are only viewed from the point of view of, law and order and all the thematic and topics that highlight and that push forward the far right and right-wing agenda.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think that's problematic.
You're a politician. I come back to the facts that
but the facts are that polls show unemployment has been for years the main topic for people in France.
I'm afraid just as the debate is heating up, things that lots of other countries haven't provided.
Yeah, and it's thanks to the social security and that had been fought for many decades, and that this present government has been weakening. One of the reasons why you had, for instance, healthcare people. Yes, they have been healthcare has been weakened by the system, and that's the very reason why you had nurses and you have healthcare providers that were onto the street protesting the handling of this government, and that's what the problem is. You talk about the economy, of course it's important, but I think what is important when you talk about economy is the way the government has been willing to go back to the way it used to be, business as usual. That's the only, and you heard my colleague Pierre-Henri Dumont also saying that what's burdening the future generation, it's the debt. We're facing a crisis, environmental crisis that is threatening the very existence of humanity, and the right wing, and I include Mr. Macron and Mr. Dumont in the same side, they are just focused about the debt. I think that the problem is we have been witnessing rising inequalities, economic equality. There's a rising poverty in France that we've never seen before, and we have 5 years. I finished it. 5 years.
Just 1 second.
We've been 5 years with a government that pretended to make our planet great again, but has been done nothing, to the point that NGOs have been protesting the government. Those are the main issues.
All right,
rising inequalities and not facing climate change.
Rising inequalities
I think that's impact economy and the future of this country. We are 73rd out of 98 countries in the last Australian think tank ranking of the handling of the pandemic. You can't say we are the best of the world. Excuse me. Just relying on what generation of working class people have fought for, and that the government has been under. Oh no, it's a liberal think tank in Australia that has been ranked. That has ranked our country 73rd out of 98 countries. You can check online if you don't believe me. So you can't say that it's the best of the world.
France has been disproportionately affected, which of course would not apply to quite a lot of the countries on that list.
Actually, I don't know what she got, because she doesn't have any program. She doesn't have any concrete proposition. The feeble measures she put forward were completely vacuous, because there was no stand on them, economically speaking. So to me, it's a sign. She is the illustration of the shift to the right, even of the Socialist Party, who my colleague Dumont pointed that Emmanuel Macron had Socialist Party members inside his party, but he used to be in the Socialist Party, so he was very close to Anne Hidalgo, and they're very compatible. And now that it just doesn't only talk right, he act right. All the economic and cultural policies been implementing on all subjects were right-wing policy. The former prime minister you interviewed was from the Républicain, the right wing. The main minister were from the right wing. So this is the right. And the reason why it's so crowded on the right is because he occupies all the space on the right. So Les Républicains has to compete with the far right. And you see how the shift is happening. And that's the same thing that is happening with the Socialist Party. She is from the right wing of the Socialist Party. If you call it center left, she is not left at all. She is center, I would say that. And let me point out that what is actually possible is that Jean-Luc Mélenchon, who is polling on numerous polls way ahead on the left, is the one who can break the terrible dilemma we face. Macron and Le Pen is the one ahead of Anne Hidalgo, ahead of the Green candidate. He's actually another Green candidate that is polling around 10, 11, up to 13%. And I think we are the challenge to make in order to convert all the abstention, because that's the main problem. I think it's not just adding, electoral vote like what the La République En Marche, the speaker, said before. We had to appeal to the majority of the people who are not voting. And I think that's the focus, and not just counting and trying to patch together a residual electoral basis. I think that's what we're trying to do. And I think we can do this and be the very surprise of this election.